All right, welcome Ashley Brichter. This is our Spotlight series here, and I'm just going to give a little introduction for you, and then we'll jump into all the questions. So thanks for coming on today. So Ashley has been a lifelong educator, birth worker, consultant, and entrepreneur. In addition to improving maternal health, she is a champion for systemic reform to improve the lives of families by rebalancing the division of labor at home and funding parental leave, universal health care, and progressive early childhood education. Despite her experience with hundreds of families as a doula, lactation counselor, and birth educator, like so many, her first birth did not go as planned. Better for it, she founded Birth Smarter in 2019, which provides unbiased, inclusive, and award-winning practical wisdom and guidance to the next generation of families. Ashley was born and raised in New York City, is a proud BICO graduate, and currently lives in Salt Lake City, where she has learned to love camping with her husband and two amazing kids. She is a certified Fair Play facilitator, a Troy Birch fellow, and she sits on the board of the Pronatal Fitness. Amazing. Well, welcome, Ashley. I'm so excited to have you and jump into all of our questions that we have. So without further ado, we're going to go right for the first one. And I know we kind of like chatted a little bit in your bio on that, but what made you decide to become an educator and a birth worker?
Yeah, great question. Thank you for having me. I have always wanted to be a teacher. I've always known that. So I think, the first documented footage is when I was 3 years old and I learned how to hold a book like face out, like the teachers, where you could like read it from the side. And so I told everybody at Free when I learned how to do that with books that I was going to be a teacher. And then I think as soon as I was 6.5 and my youngest cousin was born and I could like babysit for them and help my aunt, I was like in the world. I always showed up more for my aunts and like for the moms where I was being a mother's helper, like almost as much, if not more, right, than hanging out with the little kids. So I was very interested in parenting and like what that was like. And then when my parents split up when I was about 7, I remember pretty explicitly like thinking about them, and that's not something that every young person does, but I was like thinking about my mom and like what she had to do now that she was alone a lot, or thinking about my dad. And so I've loved the field of parenting and early childhood development forever. I went to school for education and got my certification to teach secondary social studies. But I knew that I didn't want to be in the classroom. Like I kept not finding the right fit. I was in preschools, I worked in middle schools, I worked in high schools in Philly, and I don't know, like it wasn't what I wanted to be doing. And so I decided to spend a little time not in the classroom. And in that year, I started my first LLC, and somebody asked me if I was a postpartum doula, and I was like, what is a postpartum doula? And they were like, well, you go help people with their new babies. And I was like, well, that sounds great. And you charge more than being a babysitter. So I fell into it sort of accidentally. In about 18 months, collected a postpartum doula, birth doula, lactation counselor, and then a childbirth education certification. And once I realized I could teach classes and really go after the one-to-many model, I was sold on staying in this field and using my love of curriculum and pedagogy and thinking and learning, but doing it on the parenting side and not on the student side.
Love that. Love that story. Okay, next question that I have for you is what makes you different?
I think that there are a lot of people, obviously, who want to support parents, and every single one of them has just like the most amazing intentions. I think that one of the things that makes us different is that a lot of people say there's no one right way to give birth, there's no one right way to have a baby or raise that baby, but they don't totally believe it. Um, and I do. Honestly, like it comes down to that. I found that I had done all of this work before I had kids, and um when I gave birth in 2014 and my birth didn't go as planned, I felt like it was my fault. And I felt like the people around me felt like it was my fault. Like if I should have done X, Y, or Z. And I needed to know postpartum that deeply, like I had done everything I could have. And honestly, what it is that we look at Birth Smarter is we call it the Birth Smarter framework. And so it's going to be an overlap of three different elements of what you're using in your thinking. So we're always looking at the physiological process.
Mhm.
That's where we get to geek out together, right? How is the body built? What are like the hormonal feedback loops like as it relates to birth or breastfeeding or whatever, that's driving how this should go optimally. But that's not enough to make a decision. So then we look at the societal context and we're bringing, to make it really short, we're basically bringing racism, sexism, and capitalism into every conversation about birth and parenting. Because where you're giving birth and the fact that folks are giving birth in 2024 or 2025 eventually in the United States is really meaningful, and to some extent our hands are tied behind our back because of the system we're operating in. And then the third element we're looking at is a personal circumstance. So the reality that like I am different than my sister, than my best friend, than my colleague. And when you weigh all three of those together, you're going to make different choices. You're going to have different outcomes. And that's your story.
Mhm. Very good. Very good. Love that. Okay. Who is an ideal fit for you and your company?
Yeah, so at Birth Smarter, we love when we teach sort of open-minded and curious expectant parents. And it could be your first baby, your second baby, your third baby, it doesn't matter. But if you feel like you know everything and you're taking a birth class to check a box, you're probably not a good fit for Birth Smarter. If you are coming in because your sister told you to take a class, like you might not be the best fit. We really want people who are like, huh, this is interesting. Tell me about having babies. Tell me about my body. What do I need to know? And we're so happy to dialogue and engage, but we want people who are curious and like learning. They are like coming because they want to grow through the experience of preparing for birth and baby life.
Love that. Love that too. Okay. My next question for you is, what does the process look like to work with you and your company? Like, is it all online? Is it in person? Like, give us the gamut of like, how can someone come work with you?
Yeah, so Birth Smarter has a really specific niche, and we offer childbirth education classes for folks in their third trimester. We offer those classes in Salt Lake City. We offer them online, like on Zoom. You can come and interact with me and I'll answer all your questions, right? Or we offer pre-recorded video. And we do that to meet people where they are. Like we're trying to be the most accessible childbirth education company out there. And some people want to sit on their sofas and watch videos at 2 in the afternoon. And some people want to sit on their sofas and watch, engage with us. And they need the accountability of like a live person in order to come take it. And some people deeply want to be in person. So we make it really easy. The Birth Smarter website has all of our classes in all of the locations. You go on, you pick your class, you put your credit card information in, or HSA card. If you want to do that route, we can give you a receipt you can submit to insurance. Yeah, it's pretty straightforward.
Awesome. Awesome. Great. And then from your lens with your company, what does recovery look like for postpartum? Do you go into that? Do you offer classes around that? Like what does that recovery process from the pregnancy to transition to postpartum look like?
Yeah, I mean, postpartum is forever. We really believe that. And so, we're definitely not about like a bounce back culture that there's a recovery and then you're like good to go, because you're not just recovering from the birth, you're recovering from pregnancy, you're recovering from your conception story. Like, for some people that it's a really long road to get to this birth. And then we also know that with the demands of parenting and what that does to your relationship and your mental health, it's ongoing. So we have a phrase that we like to use called the pregnant opportunity. And in every part of our curriculum in childbirth ed and newborn care, it's never just about the task at hand, right? Like we're never teaching about should I get an epidural or should I not get an epidural because the epidural matters that much? It doesn't. But when we're teaching about the epidural, we're teaching how do you make decisions, medical decisions, when things are complicated, and how can you carry that into going to talk to your pediatrician when your baby has their first cold, right? So it's like we're always trying to find the through line between what we're learning in birth preparation and the lessons and like the continued opportunity to grow as an advocate, as a partner, as a parent, as an employee, you know, as a boss, whatever, however else you identify. We do have a specific class called postpartum planning that is for people to take in their third trimester. We want every single human to take that class if they're expecting a baby, you know, between ideally 26 and 36 weeks. The earlier, the better. And that postpartum planning class has nothing to do with your baby. That is an entire class dedicated to what happens to your body, what happens to your mental health, what happens to your house, what happens to your relationship, right? What are the common expectations, and how can you preempt and sort of like front load the transition to make it gentler. So we talk a lot about fair play and domestic equity and being intentional with who's doing what. We obviously talk a lot about pelvic health recovery, and we encourage everybody to go see, you know, a pelvic floor specialist. We talk a lot about couples counseling and communication skills, how you can bring helpers in. So we're very, very forward thinking.
Love that. Love that. I think everyone should be that way, right? Okay, next question. What is something that most people don't know that you think they should know about your services?
Oh, about our services specifically, I think a lot of people don't know that Birth Smarter offers an alternative pricing program. So essentially, this is like if you don't have an HSA or FSA account, and if for some reason your insurance company is not going to reimburse you for childbirth education, essentially every product, every class we have works on a sliding scale basis. So there's pay what you can pricing or pay it forward. And there's a form to fill out online. We have a pretty clear framework that people can go read on the alternative pricing page that breaks down when you should maybe pay 100% versus 75% versus 50%. Our minimums for online classes are $10 for a class. So we work very hard to not turn anybody away, and we would rather they come take our class for $10 than watch videos on YouTube and not get the context that they need to make really important decisions.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's so valuable. Okay. Do you have anything special that you want to promote or tell about your services and things like that for whoever's watching?
Yeah, I mean, you know, what we say is like Birth Smarter are classes that are super worth taking. So the only new thing we've got going on is a CPR class, which is a really nice add-on for everybody. So instead of just, or like in addition to coming to us for regular childbirth ed, now if you want to learn or have a refresh on infant and child CPR, you can come do that. It's on demand, it's an hour. It's really, really fun. It comes with a great workbook, and you can go back and play those videos over and over again until you feel like you've mastered it. So that's new. And then because I know you have a great professional community also, I will just say that we are re-offering our class for professionals called Birth Smarter Pro, and our 2025 teacher training program applications open in November for anybody who might want to become a Birth Smarter childbirth educator.
Amazing. Wonderful. Thanks for sharing that. Okay. What is the main thing that you want to be known for?
Yeah, we want to be known for offering the most non-judgmental, unbiased, and inclusive childbirth education in the United States and all around the United States.
Love that. Okay. And then where can we find you? This is the last question. Where can we find you website-wise, social media, things like that?
We are at Birth Smarter everywhere, birthsmarter.com, Birth Smarter on Instagram. I'm Ashley at birthsmarter.com or info at birthsmarter.com. We're pretty ridiculously easy to find on the internet.
Perfect. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Ashley. I really enjoyed this time diving deep on some of those topics, and thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us.
Thanks for having me.